Patrick, you had an article you wanted to talk about.
Yes, the VTOL, the twin VTOL Osprey-like plane by Tom Stanton, I think it's just really amazing. If you look at what goes into making that thing fly, first of all, it's just two motors flying on a KK2 board, and despite my shortcomings, it's fairly easy to get a tricopter or quadcopter to fly. But you look at something balancing on two motors, and that, to me, is really impressive. And then they rotate forward and transition to level flight, which, think about it. The thing has to be balanced perfectly on its center of gravity, or darn close, for it to lift off vertically. And then they have to the motors rotate forward, which, for it to fly stable in forward flight, the CG has to shift forward slightly. So I'm thinking that the motors, as they shift forward, actually push the CG a little bit forward of the center of lift, and so it can fly as a stable airplane. And to me, that's really clever, and I'd love to think I could build something like that, but it would just crash too.
Well, for me, looking at it, it looks like he's got the KK2 board mounted vertically inside the fuselage.
Really?
He does. Yes, he does, but he's not running stock KK2 software. He's running a Open Arrow ROM, and Open Arrow will let you set the orientation of the board in the software, so you can tell it's on its side and it doesn't like to flip on you. That's kind of a nice feature. The very latest versions of the KK2 just start to have those features, but nothing like the Open Arrow has had for a long time. But that ROM also supports the VTOL. But yeah, Pat, you're absolutely right. He had to have that thing balanced just right, and if the wing's not in the right spot and the ideal CG for the flight characteristics aren't right, at the same time, that plane's either not going to fly as a multi-rotor or a bicopter, or it's not going to fly as a fixed-wing aircraft. So you've got to really build the airframe to do both.
Well, I recall the failed attempt from the flight test guys with the Avatar-looking aircraft, and how much trouble they had trying to keep that in the air.
Yeah,
right.
And they weren't even trying to transition.
Right. I think it's really quite an accomplishment. But then again, I can't even get a quadcopter to fly, so who am I to say?
I did like how he put in the thread or in the article of pretty much, I could have done this with 3 rotors, but that's too easy. I'm going to go with 2. Dude, show off.
I wonder if the guys revisited that whole Avatar thing and figured out what program he's using, because his body doesn't rock like theirs did. And I think either theirs was a CG problem or what, I don't know. But it's definitely a different program than he's running, because his is so stable. It doesn't rock, pitch, whatever. So I think if they found out what program he's running, I bet you they can get that Avatar ship if it's still together somewhere.
Well, these twin motor multi-rotors seem to be kind of a niche community. I mean, Peter, who's just joined up with Flitetest, I know he's big into them, and obviously have this article here now. It's definitely
but most of his VTOLs these days have been tris and quads.
Right. Yeah, and those are very cool, but I mean, I'm just looking at this thing lifting off vertically, and there's only 2 motors. How do you get it to balance so well? And even if the motors can tilt to compensate, how do they compensate for an error in, like, the pitch of the plane? There's not a 3rd or 4th motor there to lift the tail. Or it's just, I don't know.
It's a 2-legged stool.
Yeah.
With 3 legs, everything's nice and stable. With 2, you've got a balance on it.
Right. It's a 2-wheeled unicycle.
Okay.
And we get it, Patrick, again.
Hey, I bring the humor.